You're listening to the For Climate Tech series on the Forward Faster podcast, providing bite-sized insights for climate tech innovators.
Hello and welcome to Forward Faster. I'm your host, Chris Carpenter from the marketing team here at Xcore. With me today is the program manager of Venture For ClimateTech, Scott Myers. So thanks for joining today, Scott.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Chris. Excited to answer some questions here.
Many know Xcore is home of a handful of programs. Venture For ClimateTech, it's been around for 5 years in the form of Venture For ClimateTech. So some of you know it. But Scott, can you introduce the program to some of our listeners?
Absolutely. So Venture for ClimateTech, or V4C, as the hip kids will call it, is a nonprofit accelerator helping to secure a brighter, more sustainable future by supporting a diverse set of founders, a coalition of investors, mentors, technical experts committed to catalyzing new climate tech solutions. We're funded by the New York State Energy and Research Development Authority, NYSERDA. And so we kind of act as a top of funnel program for all the different ecosystems partners here in the NYSERDA umbrella in New York State. And I say top of funnel because we work with earlier stage companies. So we're excited to bring teams on in and introduce them to all the different benefits that NYSERDA offers.
Yeah, and they definitely have a full map of resources. So specifically, what is your role within Venture For ClimateTech? Like, how would founders be interacting with you?
I definitely want to preface it by saying we are a small but mighty team. So we do wear lots of hats, as you are very well aware of, Chris. So we do a little bit of everything here. But as program manager, my main prerogative is focusing on the curriculum and executing the curriculum for all the teams. And that's a day-to-day, week-to-week aspect. It's a lot of logistics, but also ecosystem and network building. I source and locate a diverse set of speakers to come in and talk on the topics that we prioritize for each cohort and each phase of the program. And I also act as kind of the MC/liaison for all the teams in our cohort and all the individuals within Xcore and the Venture For ClimateTech staff as well. So a lot of logistics, a lot of MCing, and really being the face of the program out there.
All right, so kind of get in the head of the founders. Say I'm a team, I'm working with a climate solution. I have kind of the nuts and bolts already. What are some of the core benefits for this program that I could get?
First and foremost, we do offer funding for our teams, and we're a nonprofit accelerator. And so it comes in form of non-dilutive money, which is really important for the stage of companies we're working with. We have up to, for this upcoming cohort, $50K for each team. So that's a huge aspect, the non-dilutive aspect. A little bit goes a long way in that sense. As I previously mentioned, as a part of program manager, we offer a tailored curriculum. We generally keep to a specific curriculum with a phased approach. I won't get too into the weeds there, but in the first phase, we focus kind of on the lean business model canvas to an extent, identifying a pathway to market, working on greenhouse gas emission impact analysis. So being able to help teams have a solid number to what they look to reduce at scale. And then in our second phase, working more on a pathway to raising money and diversifying their capital stack, introduction to investors and things of that sort. So that's another aspect, is the tailored curriculum. We're very big on mentorship, not just from our internal team, but also working with a pretty extensive, diverse list of outside mentors. But I really like to stress that we are a very high touch program in the sense of we really work with our teams day in and day out throughout the program and even after they become alumni of the program. So that's a huge aspect. There's also networking and peer-to-peer. We really stress the peer-to-peer aspect, as the climate space is relatively small and we're all fighting for the same thing, and that's combating climate change. So the peer-to-peer aspect is something we really lean in on. And then last but not least is our in-person, the only in-person aspect of our program, which is an investor showcase in New York City during Climate Week. Last year, we held ours at New Lab in the Brooklyn Navy Yard. And Chris, you might have to help me out on the amount of people, but I want to say around 300 to 400 people in the audience throughout the day there.
Yeah, it was a big event. Investors, founders, ecosystem players, government officials. It was cool. It was all that you could hope for.
Yeah, I would say those are the core benefits. Obviously, bias, but there's a lot more benefits that snowball into effect there. But I'd say those are the clear benefits.
I mean, that's a lot. So kind of break that down for me over the course of a week. Like, what does that look? How between the curriculum, mentorship, networking, coaching, how does that kind of break out?
So I'll start off Monday. We have our weekly cohort stand-ups. We do accept 20 teams into the program, so we split that up. So it's 2 stand-ups in 2 groups of 10 teams. Within those stand-ups, they're about an hour long. We go over general program announcements, what deliverables are due, what they should be focusing on, the curriculum sessions that are coming up, et cetera, et cetera. But also, we coach our teams up on building out weekly OKR and KPIs. So like weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly. So we spend some time going through the OKRs, and then we have our team share out wins and fails from the past week, as well as questions to ask the cohort. So kind of a call to action for the rest of the cohort there, because we find a lot of these teams, if they run into barriers, other teams had run into those as well. So after that, so Monday's a bit beefy there, but Tuesdays and Thursdays, those are when we schedule our curriculums outside of any circumstances like holidays or reschedule from speakers. So Tuesday, Thursdays are dedicated to that. Then we have weekly one-on-ones with our teams. It's really 2-on-1s or 3. It depends how big your teams are, but we have 2 representatives from the V4C team, and then the teams, usually the CEO, and we have the mentoring there. And that happens mainly on Wednesdays, but we also have availability on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. So those are the core aspects there. There will be deliverables associated with the curriculum as well, which will be speckled in each week. Not every week, but a lot of front loaded in the first phase. And then also we have a mentor matching program with outside mentors. So then on top of all of that, you would find time. We suggest either weekly or bi-weekly with your outside mentors. So that's a bit of a week in a glance, adding and subtracting different things as each week progresses.
In terms of like an hour's commitment, what would you estimate that as?
So around 7 to 12 hours, we usually range it, sometimes on the lower end, sometimes on the higher end, depending on deliverables and length of curriculum sessions. Because sometimes we have speakers come in and it only lasts a half hour. Sometimes it's an hour and a half. We usually cap them at around 90 minutes. And then depending on how much time you put in with deliverables, outside mentors, et cetera, it's a clear example of the type of program is you get out what you put in. So I would kind of lean on the side of, if you're looking to apply, budget in on the higher end of the 12 hours, and it really averages out through the program.
You said early stage companies. Do you have a range for who's an ideal candidate?
Absolutely. So we tend to say are on the pre-seed or seed stage. From a technology readiness level, TRL, our sweet spot's around 4 and 7. Totally okay if it's a foreign term for you. We can work through that with you in the application cycle and things of that sort. But yeah, pre-seed, seed stage, usually if teams have raised over $2 million of institutional like dilutive funding, they're not necessarily going to get a lot out of the program, but there could be a world where a team has raised that money, but they could really benefit from the program. So it's not a firm line in the sand, but we generally work with the earlier stage companies.
And that makes sense. And kind of looking more broadly at these teams, what are some of those factors that you all consider when going through the selection process?
So we're a climate tech accelerator. So first and foremost, the technology needs to significantly reduce greenhouse gas emissions at scale. So that's kind of our first bucket. All right. If it's going to have legitimate greenhouse gas emission reduction, because we are a NYSERDA funded program, you don't have to be in New York State. You don't have to plan to move your operations to New York State, but your technology at scale needs to have a market within New York State. So that's kind of our second bucket there. We also, really hone in on the why. Why are you and your team working on this? What brought you to this? Where your passions lie? Is there a legitimate market? Is there a business model that makes sense for bringing this technology to market? The strength of the team, where the team had come from, not just the degree, but the perspectives that they've gained, the communities that they're from. We really hone in on the team there and the entrepreneurs themselves. But I would say those are the main things that we're looking at. So early on in the application, a little further down, as we have a part of our down selection process is quote unquote boot camp for climate tech, where it's kind of a snapshot. It's a 4-day intensive of our program. We invite the top 40 or 50 teams to that. So for there, we also look for, what your participation will look like. Are you just joining camera off, working on other stuff in the background? Or are you going to be a contributor? Because again, to really hammer down on the peer-to-peer, we focus in on that. But yeah, I would say that's really what a lot of the things we consider as we approach the down selection recruitment process.
Very cool. My last question for you before we bring in some alumni to talk about the program. Do you have any suggestions for teams interested in applying? Any pieces of advice?
No, absolutely. I think First and foremost, just apply, put in the time. It's a pretty intensive application, but it shouldn't take all that too much time. We really suggest just apply, get yourself within the system, and be honest and forthcoming with all your answers. We'd much rather know exactly where you're at to see if we'd be able to help you, because we're in the business of helping teams build that solid foundation to scale. Be honest, be forthcoming, let us know what issues you have. Reach out to us if you have any questions. We're more than happy to respond via email, even if it's at our info@forclimatetech.org, I think it is. And we'd be happy to respond in email or even jump on a Zoom call to help you through quick application questions. And then be on our website. We have webinars throughout the recruitment cycle. So if you're available, sign up and join our webinars there. But yeah, if I can conclude, just put yourself out there, and we're excited to review your application and see if you're a good fit for the program.
Awesome. Scott, thanks so much for giving us kind of the foundation of what Venture for Climate Tech can offer. There's a ton of info, and I know Scott threw a lot at us. We're going to put that in the show notes as well. And now that we've heard a little bit about the program, I wanted to bring in folks who've experienced the program from the founder side. Joining us today from across the Atlantic is Chris Cieslak, founder and CEO of BladeBug, and Stacy Rivers, a CIO and Director of Operations. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So obviously, we know you here at Venture for Climate Tech, but could either of you explain to me what BladeBug is and how it came to be?
BladeBug is a robotic platform that's been designed to perform detailed inspections and repairs remotely on wind turbine blades without the need to have any rope access technicians abseiling down a blade and avoid them having to dangle, hundreds of feet in the air. So the objective is to increase the efficiency, the reliability, and the ease of maintenance and reducing costs of running wind turbines out in the field.
Thanks so much for that, Chris. What initially interested you about joining Venture for Climate Tech, and how would you describe the challenges your team was facing at the time?
For me, one of the highlights of Venture for Climate Tech was the focus on hardware. As a hardware or deep tech startup, we're in a very different space to software and to other forms of startup worlds. And the fact that this was tailored for a hardware-specific startup was the key thing that drew me towards the V4C, or the Venture for Climate Tech accelerator.
I would say more the market expansion and commercialization. We were looking to explore the US market, and the V4C program was a great opportunity to learn more about the US wind energy sector. So yeah, it was very much aligned to where we were looking to position the company moving forwards.
And just the focus on climate technology as well. It was just so well aligned with what BladeBug is doing. It just seemed like a very good fit and a very opportune moment for us, as Stacy mentioned, that we were looking to explore and expand into the US market.
What part about your technology do you think is the most exciting and allows for the biggest impact?
Yeah, I think for me, from my perspective, one of the most exciting aspects of our technology is its adaptability, which is a key factor that makes it a future-proof solution for the wind energy industry. Most rigid single-purpose maintenance systems are sort of constrained, whereas with our platform, we're designed to evolve alongside the industry. So in essence, ensuring long-term value and impact. As Chris said, the biggest impact for our platform is to cut costs, reduce risk, and improve efficiency, which are all crucial factors, I think, in scaling wind energy and making it a cleaner, cost-effective solution.
The robot has many features, which makes it a very exciting bit of kit for the industry. And first and foremost, it solves one of the challenges faced by the industry at the moment, which is a lack of personnel willing to do this kind of work on wind turbines. But secondly, it enables not only that shortfall of people, it also assists by maintaining or improving how those inspections and repairs are performed. So increasing reliability, increasing consistency, and enabling a much broader workforce to actually operate on these wind turbine blades by enabling people to work remotely. So we're able to have a very diverse workforce to do the same kind of work, which is currently, sadly, a very male-dominated or young male-dominated sort of sector.
Great. Thanks so much for that. And I want to hear from both of you on this one. How specifically do you feel Venture for Climate Tech helped you grow the most during the program?
It gave us a lot of tools and hands-on experience of what we need to do across the range of activities we need to do as a startup from improving our pitch decks to looking at the team structure. And there was so much that we got out of it. And with a different perspective, like a look at the US as well. So having our pitch decks critiqued from a US standpoint was really interesting, because we'd done it from a UK or European side, where there's a very different appetite from the investors or what the investors were expecting to see. So it was great to have that feedback and that constructive critique about how we need to amend what we're presenting and how we present that to the US market.
Yeah, I think from my personal perspective, very similar to Chris, I think having access to like-minded individuals and mentors that all offered support and expert advice certainly in key areas. So again, as Chris said, tailoring our pitch deck specifically to a US audience. Ours was very much sort of UK orientated. We also had a lot of expert critiquing on our financial model, and the improvements there have been significant. Obviously, the investment contacts and networks, and being linked for us, we were linked to EIR, which is Entrepreneur in Residence, and they were actually a subject matter expert in our industry that obviously came with a wealth of experience, advice and contacts. So yeah, we've really benefited from those aspects of the program.
Follow-up question to that, just because I'm personally really curious, what were the biggest differences between like a US pitch deck and a European pitch deck?
I think a lot of it is how we are projecting ourselves to, say, the investors. So from a UK point of view, it's a bit more, okay, you need investment to survive more than thrive. And in the US, it's like, no, what do you really need to get to that key milestone? What can this really be? I think there was just this more brash, go get it attitude, as opposed to the more reserved sort of UK focus side, which I felt was stifling us for quite a long time. And it was very refreshing to have that, no, just go big. Where do you really see this going? What are the big things that you can do that no one else can do? And be proud about it. Don't be very reserved and coy.
Yeah, that's a good note just for our own experiences, because it's going back and forth of the industries here in the US and there in Europe. All right, so kind of looking forward into the future, I'm curious of what is BladeBug focused on next?
So we have a few really exciting projects in the pipeline for this year. We certainly see 2025 being a transformative year for us. So firstly, we're looking to expand our tool suite. As we said earlier, we are a robotic platform that carries tools. As wind turbine blades become larger and more advanced, more expensive, non-destructive testing is becoming essential for ensuring reliability, safety, and cost-effective operation. So the industry is also pushing the limits of blade size and materials and manufacturing complexity, so making early defect detection more critical than ever. As blade sizes and offshore installations grow, NDT will play a key role in making wind power safer, more cost-effective, and more sustainable. So this is something we're really focused on developing this year. And as a result of those developments already, we've actually got two major projects in the pipeline. The first one in a couple of weeks and the other one in early Q2. And they really will be, or they will certainly have a transformative impact on our business. And I strongly believe they will strengthen our position in both wind and revolutionizing inspection, maintenance and repair. The other really important and really exciting project that we're working on is, at the moment, BladeBug is currently deployed using rigging, but this year we'll see a transformation with the platform, and we'll be taking, let's say, not next steps, but use of wings. So yeah, this year, watch this space, because BladeBug is going aerial.
That's exciting. We're going to have you guys back on the podcast once it's in the air.
Yeah.
Chris, was there anything you wanted to add to that for kind of your focus moving forward?
Yeah, and it's about these opportunities. So it's about transitioning from where we've been, which is predominantly like research and development and building up the robot to like this MVP that we currently have, and taking it out into the big wild world and start generating revenue and start transitioning from a pre-revenue startup to a revenue generating startup, and ideally a profitable revenue generating startup. And with the opportunities that we're having, there's been a seismic shift in how that has appeared, from us almost having to educate the industry that this is something that everybody needs, to people coming thick and fast into our inbox and messaging us through other channels saying, we need you on site yesterday. So there has been this shift, and we are in a very good spot to try and capitalize that. And what we have to do now is be very mindful of how we navigate this really exciting opportunities, because we could overpromise and underdeliver and, do ourselves some reputational damage. So what we have to be very careful of is make sure that we do this in the right way, work with these early adopters that we now have, and ensure that we're working very closely with them. So we're not going to let anyone down. We're going to be very clear and transparent about how we do things and build that trust and relationship up going forward, because without that, we're going to be struggling later on.
The art of moving quickly, but in a sure-footed way.
Yeah, very exciting to be able to watch y'all continue to grow. One of my favorite parts of the job is being able to be y'all's cheerleader post-program and seeing you find ways to grow and reiterate. And so very exciting. Thanks so much for sharing that. So we're nearing the end of here. We wanted to know, would you recommend Venture for ClimateTech to another founder?
100%. We've been on a number of accelerators and these kind of programs before, but I think hands down, this was the best. And I don't say that just because I'm sort of on this podcast with you guys. It is generally something where there was a genuine will from the people running the accelerator to help you. And it wasn't just, lip service, oh, you should do this. This is the best. It was people willing to help us. So we had people helping on our financial model. We had people, making notes and critiquing our pitch decks. And for us, one of the key things that we lack as a startup is time. So Stacy and I are juggling like 15 different balls in the air, and it's great that everyone gives you sort of lovely sage advice, but sometimes you just want people to help you and do things, because then you can focus on doing other things. And Venture for ClimateTech did that for us in a number of different areas, and I think that was very refreshing and extremely useful. So I would hands down recommend this to another founder for sure.
Amazing. I'm going to send that one to Jack and warm his heart.
Yeah, and Scott, you said you'd give me $10 for saying that, didn't you? I think that was...
Yes. Although I'm not sure the conversion rate to pounds these days.
Oh, I think one thing I'd like to also add to that, I know I would have a little pause. One of the other benefits of Venture for ClimateTech was that there was no equity expected to be given to the accelerator. And in fact, the opposite was true. We received funds for being part of the project. And that was also very refreshing, that there was a lot of time given to this accelerator, but we were remunerated, and it was a really nice program to be on with a lovely cohort. And again, the team from the Venture for ClimateTech were just extremely friendly and helpful. And yeah, I couldn't praise them enough.
As Scott said, watching the teams is like a kind of our payback in return of just seeing which direction folks go and how it works out. And before we sign off here, I always like to give the space, but is there anything else you two wanted to share that we feel we didn't cover?
Yeah, so one thing from my perspective is that the support hasn't and doesn't end at the end of the accelerator. So I'm still benefiting from the network. So Jack and one of the other mentors has met one of my investors out in the States, and there is an ongoing level of support that I can ask for assistance with refining pitch decks and getting introductions to potential investors. So yeah, it doesn't stop at the end of the thing and see you later, close the door, won't ever hear from you again. It does seem to be that there is an ongoing level of care and diligence that we're going to continue getting the help and support that we need going forward as well.
As Chris said, that support is just continues. I'm still in touch with lots of the other cohort members. We have a channel that we're all still in touch with, and we help each other out, offer advice if we've got questions. Everybody's still sort of actively engaged, and even with the V4C team, they're always available and on hand to help us if we've got any questions. And we've never had that before with any other program.
Always. Well, thank you guys both for, one, thank you to everyone tuning in, and a huge thank you to Stacy, Chris, and Scott for joining us today to talk about V4C.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
And for anyone interested in learning more or applying to Venture for ClimateTech, head to our page at forclimatetech.org/venture. And the 4 is spelled out FOR. Also, check out BladeBug. We'll be linking them to the show below. And we'll see you next time on the Forward Faster podcast.